AITA for walking out after my mother-in-law said my wife settled for me. My name is Felix. I'm 38, and I've been married to Lauren for almost 9 years. I'm the kind of guy who rinses dishes before putting them in the dishwasher because I don't trust the machine to do the whole job, and for a long time, I treated my marriage the same way. I figured if something was messy, I could quietly do a little extra and keep the peace. That worked in a lot of places. It did not work with Lauren's family. Lauren's family is close in the way that looks warm from the outside and feels suffocating once you're actually inside it. They have group chats for every birthday, every holiday, every cookout, every quick question that somehow turns into 47 messages. They do family dinners where everybody talks over each other, birthday parties where adults still make speeches, and holiday gatherings where attendance feels less like an invitation and more like a loyalty test. At first, I thought it was sweet. Over time, I realized it was only sweet if you knew your assigned place. My assigned place was the punchline. Lauren's mother, Diane, had a way of smiling while saying something sharp enough to leave a mark. She never started with anything big. That was part of the problem. Her comments were always small enough that if I reacted, I looked sensitive. The first year Lauren and I were married, we showed up 10 minutes late to a family dinner because traffic was backed up and Lauren had forgotten the gift bag on the kitchen counter. Diane opened the door, smiled at Lauren, then looked at me and said, "At least you finally showed up." Everyone laughed. I smiled because I didn't know what else to do. Another time, Lauren and I brought dessert to a family barbecue. Diane looked at the pie, looked at me, and said, "Oh, Felix helped? That's brave." Lauren laughed softly and said, "Mom." Diane waved her hand like she was shooing away a fly. "I'm teasing. Don't be so serious." There was always that word. Teasing. If Lauren was dressed up and I was standing beside her, Diane would say, "My daughter always had interesting taste." If someone complimented Lauren on something, Diane would sigh and say, "Some women marry up. Some marry for personality." If I fixed a loose cabinet handle at their house, she'd pat my shoulder and say, "Don't worry, honey, we know you're doing your best." The room would chuckle. Robert, Lauren's father, would smile like he had something stuck in his teeth. Ashley, Lauren's younger sister, would look down at her drink. Mark, Ashley's husband, would usually laugh a little too loudly, like he was trying to prove he understood the rules. And Lauren would do nothing. That was the part one had the hardest time admitting to myself. I could handle Diane not liking me. Not everyone has to like you. I could handle awkward family dynamics. I could even handle a sharp comment once in a while if it was followed by any sign that the person knew where the line was. But Diane didn't know where the line was because nobody ever made her stop walking past it. Whenever I brought it up to Lauren afterward, she always had the same set of answers. "That's just how my mom is. She teases everyone. You know how she gets. If you react, you're giving her exactly what she wants." Sometimes she would touch my arm when she said it, like that softened the fact that she was asking me to swallow something that hurt. I wanted to believe her. I wanted to believe she saw it. I wanted to believe she was just tired or scared of conflict or choosing her battles. Marriage requires patience. Families are complicated. People have old patterns. That's what I told myself. So I kept showing up. I carried coolers at backyard gatherings. I unfolded metal chairs and wiped down patio tables. I brought extra ice when Diane sent a last-minute message to the family group chat. I sent polite thank you texts after dinners where I had spent 3 hours pretending not to hear myself being carved up in little pieces. I thought being calm meant I was strong. After a while, it just meant I was quiet. The dinner that finally broke everything was for Robert's birthday. It wasn't supposed to be small. Diane never did small when there was an opportunity for people to admire how much effort she put into being the center of something. She planned a big dinner at their house with siblings, cousins, neighbors who had known Lauren since she was a kid, and a few family friends who treated Diane like the unofficial mayor of every room she entered. The group chat was called Robert's Birthday Crew because apparently family stuff had gotten too full of old arguments and grocery lists. For a week, Diane filled the chat with updates. Need 2 more folding tables. Who's bringing soda? Don't forget Robert likes chocolate frosting, not vanilla. Kids can use disposable plates. Lauren, make sure Felix knows we're eating at 6. That last one came with a smiling emoji. I stared at it longer than I should have, then put my phone face down. Lauren was tense the whole day of the dinner. She changed outfits 2 times. She asked me which shoes looked better, then frowned when I answered too quickly. She checked her phone every few minutes. When I asked if we were bringing the dessert tray or just the card, she snapped, "I know what we're bringing, Felix." I held up both hands. "Okay, just asking." She closed her eyes for a second. "I'm sorry. I just don't want a night to be weird." That was the first warning I should have taken more seriously. "Why would it be weird?" I asked. She grabbed her earrings from the bathroom counter and didn't look at me. "It's my dad's birthday. Mom gets stressed." That was Lauren's favorite way to describe Diane when Diane was gearing up to be cruel. Stressed. Not mean. Not controlling. Not out of line. Stressed. In the car, Lauren kept her phone in the cup holder. I wasn't snooping. The screen kept lighting up, angled slightly toward me, and the group chat was open. Diane had written, "I might finally say what everyone's been thinking." Ashley replied with a nervous laughing emoji. Mark wrote, "Please be nice tonight." Diane replied, "He needs to learn to laugh at himself." Then, "Don't worry, I won't go too far." My stomach tightened. I looked over at Lauren. She was driving, both hands tight on the steering wheel, jaw clenched. Her reply popped up before I could decide whether to say anything. "Please don't embarrass me." Not, "Don't embarrass Felix." Not, "Don't hurt my husband." Not even, "Mom, leave it alone." "Please don't embarrass me." That sentence sat in the car with us the rest of the drive. When we got there, the house was already loud. Cars lined the street. Kids were running across the front lawn. Someone had propped the side gate open, and I could hear people laughing in the backyard. The kitchen smelled like baked pasta, garlic bread, and the overly sweet frosting of a grocery store sheet cake. Diane met us at the door wearing a bright blouse and the kind of smile she saved for an audience. "My baby," she said, pulling Lauren into a hug. Then she looked at me. "Oh good, you made it. I told Robert we shouldn't start without you, even though that's usually risky." A few people in the entryway laughed politely. Lauren gave my hand a quick squeeze, not in support, more like a warning. "Please don't start." I smiled. "Good to see you too, Diane." Her eyes flicked over me, measuring whether the comment had landed. I didn't give her anything. I helped Robert move a stack of folding chairs from the garage to the patio. He clapped me on the shoulder and said, "Thanks, Felix. Appreciate it." Robert wasn't a bad man. That almost made it worse. He saw everything, understood most of it, and chose peace with Diane over fairness to anyone else. When Diane made comments, Robert usually looked at the floor, changed the subject, or said, "Diane, maybe that's enough," in a tone so weak it sounded like he was asking the weather to improve. That night, he seemed tired but happy. It was his birthday, and I told myself I could get through a few hours for him. So I helped set out chairs. I talked to Ashley's kids about school. I complimented the food. I stood near the kitchen island while adults picked at cheese and crackers before dinner. I nodded when a neighbor told the same story 3 times about Robert backing his truck into a mailbox 20 years ago. And Diane kept testing the room. "Felix, you want the end chair? That one is sturdy." A few laughs. "Lauren, honey, sit closer to us. You deserve the good side of the table." More laughs. "Felix is quiet tonight. Should we be worried? Or is this his charming mode?" Mark chuckled and rubbed the back of his neck. "Come on, Diane." She smiled sweetly. "What?" I said, charming. Lauren stared down at the napkin in her lap and folded one corner until it had a crease. I caught her eye. She gave me that tiny look again. "Please don't." I looked away first. That was when I started noticing how specific Diane's comments were getting. It wasn't just "Felix is late" or "Felix is quiet." It was little references to private things, details she should not have had. When someone mentioned a holiday dinner from the year before, Diane said, "Well, we all know Felix doesn't like staying too long once he's uncomfortable." That holiday dinner had ended early because Lauren and I had argued in the car beforehand, and she had asked me to leave after dessert because she didn't want to cry in front of everyone. Diane didn't know that part, or at least she hadn't been told that part. Later, Lauren mentioned that she had been sleeping badly, and Diane said, "You always did need reassurance. Some people make that harder than it should be." Her eyes slid toward me. I felt something cold move through my chest. During dinner, Diane made a comment about how basic consideration has to be explained to some people. That one hit because Lauren and I had used almost those exact words in an argument months earlier. She had been upset that I forgot to text when a repair appointment ran late. I apologized that night. I ordered dinner because she was too tired to cook. We talked it through, or I thought we had. But Diane only knew the version where I had failed. She didn't know the apology. She didn't know what I did afterward. She didn't know any part of the repair. That was when I understood something I had been avoiding for a long time. Diane hadn't built her opinion of me alone. Lauren had helped. A few days before Robert's birthday dinner, I had borrowed Lauren's tablet to look up a recipe we had saved. We shared kitchen stuff all the time, grocery lists, recipes, photos of labels from things we liked. It wasn't unusual. Her messages were synced to the tablet. A notification came in from Diane while I was holding it, and the thread opened when my thumb hit the screen. I was about to close it. I really was. Then I saw my name. The messages were from months earlier, after an argument Lauren and I had already resolved. At least, I thought we had resolved it. Lauren had written, "Sometimes I wonder if I settled." I remember standing in the kitchen with the tablet in my hand while the refrigerator hummed behind me. My whole body went still. Diane replied, "I've thought that for years." Lauren wrote, "Don't say anything to him, Mom. I just need to vent." Diane answered, "One day someone should say it." Lauren replied, "Please don't make it worse." I closed the tablet after that. I didn't read more. I didn't want to be the kind of husband who dug through messages looking for more pain. But I saved screenshots of that one exchange. I didn't confront Lauren right away. Part of me wanted to see what she would do. I wanted to know if she understood what she had created. I wanted to know if, when the moment came, she would protect our marriage without me begging her to. At Robert's birthday dinner, as Diane's comments got sharper and Lauren's silence got heavier, I realized Lauren knew something was coming. She knew enough to be nervous. She knew enough to tell her mother not to embarrass her. But she didn't know enough or care enough in that moment to say, "Don't hurt my husband." After dinner, Diane stood near the head of the long table with a glass of wine in her hand. The adults were seated across the dining room and the patio. The kids had abandoned their disposable plates and were chasing each other near the sliding door, and Robert was smiling in that embarrassed way people do when they know a speech is coming. Diane tapped her glass with a fork. "Everybody, just for a minute." The room settled. Chairs scraped. Someone laughed and said, "Speech time." Diane put one hand over her heart. "Robert, you have given this family so much. You've been patient, kind, hardworking, and somehow you survived raising 2 daughters in this house." People laughed. Robert shook his head, smiling. It started sweet. For about 30 seconds, it stayed sweet. Then Diane turned slightly toward Lauren. "Robert and I have always wanted the best for our girls," she said. "Every parent does. You picture certain things for your children. You imagine who they'll become, what kind of life they'll build, who they'll choose to stand beside them." My fork was still beside my plate. I remember noticing a smear of frosting on the edge of a paper napkin near Ashley's son. Diane kept going. And when Lauren brought Felix around, I'll admit, I had questions. The room changed. It didn't get loud. It got tight. That is the only way I can describe it. People froze in place while pretending they hadn't. Diane smiled like she was doing stand-up. I mean, every mother hopes her daughter marries someone who matches her. But love is funny, right? Sometimes your child surprises you. Sometimes she settles into a life you didn't picture for her. A few people chuckled because they didn't know what else to do. Mark looked down into his drink. Ashley's face went red. Robert said quietly, "Diane." She lifted one finger like she was almost done. "But Felix has taught us something. You don't always have to understand your daughter's choice. Sometimes you just have to support it and hope she knows what she's doing." I looked at Lauren. That was the moment I will remember for the rest of my life, no matter what happens between us. Not Diane's words. Lauren's face. She was staring at her plate. Her fingers were wrapped around the stem of her water glass so tightly her knuckles had gone pale. She knew. She knew this was wrong. She knew I was looking at her. And she still said nothing. Diane added, "And Felix, if you ever feel like we're hard on you, just know it's because Lauren is special to us. We expected a lot. Maybe too much." Something in me went quiet. Not angry quiet. Clear quiet. For years, I had imagined that if I ever snapped, it would be loud. I thought I would yell. I thought I would say something unforgivable. I thought I would be shaking. Instead, I calmly picked up my glass of water and stood. The table went silent. Diane's smile flickered. I looked at her first. "You're right about one thing," I said. "I did spend years trying to earn a place in this family. Tonight, I realized I was applying for a position no decent man should want. Nobody moved. Diane blinked. Lauren whispered, "Felix, not here." I turned to her. "That's what you said every time your mother did this. Not here. Not now. Not worth it." So I listened. And somehow, the only person who ever had to be quiet was me. Her face tightened. "This is my dad's birthday." "I know," I said. "And I'm sorry Robert's birthday became another stage for your mother to insult me while everyone pretended it was normal." Diane let out a sharp laugh. "Oh, please. It was a toast." I looked back at her. "No. It was a public insult with a ribbon tied around it." Someone near the patio muttered, "Let's not do this today." Robert pushed back his chair. "Felix, nobody wants a fight." "I'm not fighting," I said. "I'm leaving before I say something cruel, just because everyone else got comfortable doing it first." Diane's cheeks flushed. "You're proving exactly what I've been saying." I nodded once. "And what you've been saying came from private conversations you were never mature enough to keep private, and Lauren was never careful enough to stop feeding you." Lauren went pale. I didn't take out my phone. I didn't read the screenshots. I didn't throw her messages across the table like evidence in a courtroom. I didn't have to. Lauren's face told the room enough. Diane opened her mouth, then closed it. Ashley looked at Lauren. Mark looked at the floor. Robert stared at me like he wanted to say 3 different things and didn't have the courage for any of them. Lauren stood, embarrassed and angry. "You're humiliating my mother." I felt that sentence land harder than Diane's entire toast. I said, "No, Lauren. I'm refusing to help her humiliate me." Then I turned to the table. "This is the last family event I attend where I'm treated like a joke and then asked to protect everyone else from the awkwardness they created." I set my napkin beside my plate. Not thrown. Not dramatic. Just done. Then I walked out. The house was still loud behind me, but it sounded far away once I got outside. I sat in my car for a few minutes with both hands on the steering wheel and just breathed. My chest felt tight, but not in a panicked way. More like something that had been held in place for years had finally cracked open. My phone started buzzing before I left the driveway. The group chat exploded. "Robert, tonight got out of hand. Please call me." "Mark, can we not do this in the group chat?" Unknown cousin. "Wow." Another cousin. "Not cool to ruin Robert's birthday." Ashley. "Mom, that toast was not okay." Diane. "When Felix is ready to act like an adult, I'm willing to talk." Lauren. "Everybody stop texting. Please." Then Robert privately texted me. "You owe Diane an apology." I stared at that one for a few seconds. Then I muted the group chat and turned off notifications. I didn't block anyone. That would have created a whole new conversation. I just made the phone stop shaking in my cup holder. When I got home, the kitchen was dark except for the light above the stove. There were 2 glasses in the sink from earlier, a dish towel hanging crooked from the oven handle, and the dessert tray Lauren had decided not to bring sitting on the counter with plastic wrap still over it. I changed clothes, washed my face, and sat at the kitchen table. Lauren got home almost an hour later. The front door opened hard, then closed carefully. That was Lauren in conflict. Big feelings, controlled sounds. She walked into the kitchen still wearing the dress she had changed into after rejecting the first 2. "What was that?" she asked. Her voice was low. There was no one else in the house, but we were still whispering like we were afraid someone would hear us. That was when I realized how trained we both were to perform peace even in private. I looked up at her. "That was me leaving. You embarrassed my family." "Your mother embarrassed herself," I said. "You embarrassed our marriage." Her mouth opened a little. "That is not fair." "No," I said. "What happened tonight wasn't fair." She crossed her arms. "You had screenshots? Really? You saved private messages like ammunition." I leaned back in the chair. "I saved them because every time I tried to talk about the disrespect, you told me I was imagining it." I was venting to my mom. "You told your mother you wondered if you settled for me." Her eyes filled fast, but her voice stayed defensive. I was upset. "I know. Couples fight. I know. I didn't mean it like that." "Then what did you mean?" She looked away. The refrigerator kicked on. It made the silence feel louder. "I needed someone to talk to," she said. "You didn't just talk," I said. "You handed her a match and then acted shocked when she lit something on fire." Lauren wiped under one eye. "I didn't think she'd say it in front of everyone." "She told you she might. She says things all the time. And you didn't say, 'Don't hurt my husband.' You said, 'Don't embarrass me.'" That broke through something. Her face changed. Not all the way. Not enough for an instant fix. But enough that I could see the sentence hit where it needed to. She sat down across from me. I didn't want her to make a scene. You were more worried about her making a scene than about me becoming the scene. Lauren pressed her hands together on the table. I'm sorry you felt that way. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny. No, I said. We're not doing that. What? I'm not accepting. I'm sorry you felt that way like it's an apology. I'm not asking to be worshipped. I'm asking not to be mocked. There's a difference. She stared at the table. I continued. I'm not apologizing to make disrespect more comfortable. I'm not going to another family event where your mother insults me and you call my reaction the problem. And I'm not going to be the only person protecting this marriage. Lauren looked exhausted. What do you want me to do? Cut off my whole family? No, I said. I want you to stop using me as the price of keeping peace with them. She didn't answer. So I kept going. Diane doesn't get to insult me and call it a joke. You don't get to share one-sided versions of our worst moments and then expect me to absorb how they treat me afterward. I won't apologize for leaving. If you want me at future family events, you set the boundary before we arrive. If your mother starts again, you speak first. Not after I'm already sitting there emotionally hurt. Lauren flinched at that. I didn't soften it. And we need to have a serious conversation about whether you want a marriage or an audience. She looked up. That's extreme. No, I said. Extreme was me spending years trying to be accepted by people who were being trained to disrespect me. She cried then. Usually, I would have moved to her side of the table. I would have rubbed her back. I would have said, it's okay, even when it wasn't. This time I stayed where I was. Not because I didn't love her. Because I did. And because I was finally tired of comforting the person who had helped hurt me just so she wouldn't have to sit with what she did. The next few days were ugly in a quiet way. Lauren slept in the guest room the first night. I didn't stop her. The next morning, we moved around each other in the kitchen like co-workers after a bad meeting. She made coffee. I unloaded the dishwasher. Neither of us said much. My phone kept lighting up. Robert called 2 times. I let it go to voicemail. His message was exactly what I expected. Felix, listen. I know Diane can be a lot. But you walking out like that, in front of everybody, it hurt her. It hurt me too. I think you should call and smooth things over. Smooth things over. That phrase made me feel tired in my bones. Ashley texted me privately the next afternoon. I didn't want to say this in the chat, but you weren't wrong. Mom went too far. She does this when she knows people won't push back. I should have said something. I read it 3 times before answering. Thank you for saying that. She replied, I'm sorry it took me this long. Mark messaged me later that night. I didn't like how it happened, man, but I get it. I laughed because that's what I learned to do. Doesn't mean it was okay. Honestly, I wish I'd said something like that years ago. That one surprised me. I wrote, I appreciate that. He sent back, also Diane is definitely mad at me now for not being madder at you, so thanks for that. I almost smiled. Almost. Diane did not text me again after her act like an adult message, but she posted vague things in the family chat about respect, gratitude, and how sad it is when people can't take a joke. I didn't respond. Lauren and I had 3 long conversations that week. The first was mostly her defending herself. She said she felt caught in the middle. I told her, you weren't in the middle. You were standing beside your mother and asking me to understand the view. She said Diane didn't mean everything the way it sounded. I said, a joke is supposed to be funny to more than the person holding the knife. She said I made her look bad. I said, you're focused on how it looked. I'm focused on what it was. The second conversation was quieter. Lauren admitted she had been afraid of Diane's reaction for most of her life. Diane didn't scream often, but she could go cold in a way that made everyone scramble to fix the temperature. Lauren said growing up, if Diane felt disrespected, the whole house changed. Robert would get quiet. Ashley would disappear to her room. Lauren would apologize even when she didn't understand what she had done. I know that explains some of it, Lauren said, sitting on the edge of our bed. It doesn't excuse it. I nodded. No, it doesn't. She cried again, but this time she didn't ask me to make it better. That mattered. The third conversation was the one that changed things. Lauren came into the kitchen while I was rinsing a coffee mug. She stood there for a second, then said, I made you look like your worst moments. I turned off the water. She swallowed. When I was mad, I told my mom the parts where you disappointed me. I didn't tell her when you apologized. I didn't tell her when I was wrong too. I didn't tell her when we fixed it. So in her head, you became this version of yourself that only exists on bad days. I leaned against the counter. She continued. And then when she treated you like that version, I acted like I had nothing to do with it. That was the first real apology. Not perfect, not magical, but real. I'm sorry, she said. For what I said. For what I let her say. For caring more about her reaction than your dignity. I wanted to forgive her right there because I was tired and because loving someone makes you want relief. But relief is not the same as repair. So I said, I accept that you're sorry, but I'm not treating it like a reset button. She nodded slowly. What do we do now? You call your mother, I said. With me in the room. Not so I can control what you say. So I can hear whether you mean it. Lauren looked scared. Then she picked up her phone. Diane answered on the second ring. Lauren put it on speaker. Hi, Mom. Diane's voice came through bright and sharp. Well, has your husband calmed down? Lauren closed her eyes for half a second. Then she opened them and looked at me. Mom, you don't get to insult my husband anymore. Not privately, not publicly, not as a joke. There was silence. Then Diane laughed once. Oh, Lauren. Lauren's hand trembled, but her voice didn't. No, I need you to listen. I helped create this by telling you too much when I was upset, and that stops now. My marriage is not a group project. If I'm upset with Felix, I'll handle it with Felix or with someone who can be fair. Not with you if you're going to use it against him. Diane's tone hardened. So now I'm the villain. I didn't say that. You don't have to. He's sitting right there, isn't he? Lauren glanced at me. Yes, he is. And I'm saying this because I should have said it years ago. Diane went quiet again. Lauren said, if you insult him again, we leave. Both of us. Diane scoffed. Both of you. Yes, Lauren said. Both of us. That was the first time I had ever heard Diane run out of room. She tried to circle back. She said she was being honest. She said families tease. She said Felix needed thicker skin. She said she had only ever wanted the best for Lauren. Lauren repeated, both of us. Not louder. Not meaner. Just steady. When the call ended, Lauren sat there with the phone in her lap, like she had just stepped off a moving ride. I didn't hug her right away, but I did sit beside her. The next family dinner came 2 weeks later. I didn't go. Lauren went alone for 30 minutes because she wanted to speak with Robert and because I wasn't going to tell her she couldn't see her family. Before she left, she asked, are you sure? I said, I'm not going somewhere just to prove I can survive it. She nodded. Later, she told me Diane opened with, I suppose Felix is still being dramatic. Lauren picked up her purse and said, I'm leaving. Diane apparently said, oh, don't be ridiculous. Lauren left anyway. That was the first action that made me believe things might actually change. Robert called me after that. I answered. He sounded tired. Diane feels attacked, he said. She felt embarrassed. I said, that's different. He sighed. I don't like conflict, Felix. I know. I should have said something at the dinner. Yes, I said. You should have. He didn't argue. That was the closest Robert had ever come to taking responsibility. 2 months later, Ashley invited us to a smaller gathering for one of her kids. I didn't want to go. Lauren didn't pressure me. That was new. She said, I'd like us to go together, but only if you want to. And if my mom starts, I'll handle it. I believed her enough to try. Not completely. Enough. We parked outside Ashley's house and sat there for a moment. Lauren turned to me before we got out. If she starts, she said, I'll handle it. I looked at her. I need you to understand something. I don't need a speech. I just need to not be alone in the room. She nodded. I know. Inside, things were awkward but polite. Ashley hugged me longer than usual. Mark handed me a soda and said, welcome back to the circus, then immediately winced. Sorry. Bad joke. I said, that one was actually funny. He looked relieved. Robert was careful with me. Not warm exactly, but careful. That was fine. Careful was a start. Diane was colder. She didn't hug me. She didn't offer me food. She treated me like a guest she had been forced to tolerate. I was okay with that. Quiet was an improvement. For almost an hour, nothing happened. The kids opened gifts. People ate cake. Ashley kept the conversation moving. Mark only laughed at things that were actually jokes. Then Diane walked by us near the kitchen island and said, lightly enough for plausible deniability, well, look who decided to come back. My body reacted before my mind did. My shoulders tightened. My breath stopped for half a second. I didn't say anything. Because Lauren did. Mom, don't. That was it. 2 words. No big speech. No dramatic confrontation. No table going silent. No glass in anyone's hand. Diane looked at Lauren, then at me, then back at Lauren. I was just saying hello. Lauren held her gaze. Then say hello. For once, Diane didn't have a crowd willing to rescue her. She walked away. I stood there with a paper plate in my hand and felt something loosen in my chest that I didn't realize I had still been carrying. It wasn't fixed. Not all of it. Trust doesn't rebuild because someone says the right thing once. Lauren and I still had work to do. We still argued. There were still moments when she got defensive and moments when I got distant because I was waiting for the old pattern to come back. Diane did not suddenly become kind. Robert did not suddenly become brave. Some relatives still thought I had overreacted at the birthday dinner. One cousin still acted like I had personally ruined cake for the entire family. But things changed. Lauren stopped using her mother as a place to dump one-sided anger. When we had problems, we talked to each other. Sometimes badly, sometimes awkwardly, but directly. Diane lost the easy power of making me the family joke. She still had her opinions. She still had that sweet voice with the blade tucked underneath. But she learned that if she used it on me, Lauren would not stand beside her and call it peace. Ashley started speaking more honestly. Mark stopped laughing at every sharp comment just to stay safe. Robert became awkward around me, but more careful, and careful was better than pretending nothing had happened. And me? I stopped attending things out of obligation. I stopped accepting disrespect just because it came with a smile. I stopped confusing silence with maturity. I stayed in my marriage because Lauren began protecting it with actions, not excuses. That was the difference. I didn't need her to hate her mother. I didn't need her to choose cruelty back. I needed her to understand that a marriage can't survive if only one person is protecting it. The win was never humiliating Diane back. The win was finally refusing to abandon myself just so everyone else could stay comfortable. If you like the stories, don't forget to leave a comment and support the channel by subscribing. See you in the upcoming stories.